In today's complex business scenario, every leader requires to be a sense maker. So, who is a sense maker and what is sense making all about? The word sense making was coined by renowned organizational theorist Carl Weick. Sense making is all about understanding, comprehending, and communicating pertaining to the change which is happening in an organizational or business scenario. All great leaders have this quality of sense making, and for all who want to transition into becoming an inspirational leader, required having this quality of sense making within him or her. So, what are the various elements which constitute sense making? So, sense making has four clear dimensions. The first point is when you understand that matters around you are volatile, ambiguous, uncertain, or there are a lot of changes happening. The first thing leaders need to do is to collect maximum data as possible. The second point is trying to learn from people around you and take help of those who you possibly assess can provide the right guidance. The third step in this process is to look for patterns and to create a new map pertaining to what is happening around you. And the last part of the sense making process is to create and identify solutions and experiment with that and to see how the system responds. So sense making focuses on these elements, and when it comes to changes which are happening or possibly even crisis, that's when leaders test this particular quality of sense making. It is in fact a litmus test for them. I would share with you two examples pertaining to the quality of sense making and about two leaders and two organizations which went through that litmus test. The first is Starbucks. So in the year 2018, Starbucks faced negative publicity for racial discrimination when two black men came into one of their outlets in the US and they didn't do anything wrong. However, because of some misunderstanding, the person at the counter called the cops and these two men were handcuffed and arrested. As I mentioned, there was nothing wrong which was done by these two gentlemen, and the organization received a major backlash. So videos of this particular gentleman were splashed across the internet and various formats of media, and the company got a lot of negative publicity. However, the CEO of the organization at that point of time, Kevin Johnson, was not someone to be bogged down. He accepted that there was a mistake done by one of his team members, and he decided to take onus, and he understood that matters are now changing. It's a very different world now where racial prejudice has no place. Such discrimination cannot exist. And he tried to take matters into control, and within a few days of this particular incident, after these two men were let off, Starbucks and under the aegis of Kevin Johnson decided to shut their stores in the United States for a day, and racial bias training was undertaken. So for a day across the US, 8,000 Starbucks outlets and 175,000 team members of Starbucks across various functions had to undergo racial bias training. And this is what leadership is all about. When you realize that there is a changing scenario around you or there is a crisis, how you respond to it, how do you collect data, analyze, take guidance of people around you, and then respond back. And that's what Kevin Johnson did. And at the same time, he was very open in his communication, as a result of which Starbucks was able to bounce back from this particular unfortunate incident. The second instance is that of the year 1982 and pertaining to Johnson & Johnson, the pharmaceutical behemoth. Now in 1982, 7 people died in the US after consuming Tylenol, which is a capsule manufactured by Johnson and Johnson. The reason for this particular spate of deaths is said to be drug tampering and possibly some issue with the packaging or how the bottles were packaged. And the unfortunate reality is 7 people lost their lives. Now, again, a leader who is James Burke, who was at that point of time the chairman of Johnson & Johnson, he moved swiftly into action. First of all, apologized for whatever issue had happened, and this is no small issue. People lost their lives. However, the sincerity and honesty with which he approached this whole matter, that was something remarkable. He immediately recalled 31 million bottles of Tylenol tablets from the market. He, from time to time, kept the media abreast over new developments which were happening. Within a matter of time, Johnson & Johnson reworked on the packaging of Tylenol capsules. They had much more pilferage-proof packaging or bottles which were created. And as a result, Johnson & Johnson, under the leadership of James Burke, was able to come up from this particular tragedy, and the organization bounced back or made a comeback in a major way. That is once again an example of how a leader exhibited sense making to take his organization out of the doldrum in a time of crisis, or possibly manage effectively in a changing scenario. So, sense making is extremely vital, as you would have understood from these two examples, for every leader and every person who aspires to be a leader. So, develop your sense making abilities and ensure that you climb up the echelons of leadership success. Thank you very much for your time.